At the start of the story, we see a man named Dan, who is comfortably sitting on the sofa with his daughter Muri watching a football match. But suddenly, something strange begins to happen on the TV. The match stops midway because smoke and flashes of lightning-like clouds appear on the field. Suddenly, a group of soldiers emerges from those clouds, led by a woman named Lieutenant Hart. She announces to everyone that they have come from the year 2051, meaning from the future. It is revealed that an alien species called white spikes has attacked Earth, and by 2051, they have wiped out most of humanity. These soldiers have come to request people to travel to the future and join the war. Over the next 12 months, every country in the world sends as many soldiers as possible. But the authorities in the future demand even more people. Only about 1/4 of the soldiers who go to war return alive. When there is a shortage of trained soldiers, the government begins recruiting ordinary civilians. Dan is a teacher. While he is teaching a class, he suddenly receives a message on his phone stating that he has been selected to be sent to the war. Later, he visits the nearby military office to confirm this. Dan is told that since he will die within the next 7 years, he is suitable for being sent to the war. Hearing this, Dan is stunned and starts asking all sorts of strange questions. But the officers don't provide direct answers to any of his questions. Ignoring his protests, they attach a device to his arm that will track him and allow them to communicate with him from the future. This device cannot be removed until he returns from 2051. That evening, Dan meets his wife, Emmy, and explains everything to her. Emmy, in a panic, suggests they should flee from the government. But Dan informs her that a tracker has already been attached to his arm. No matter where they flee, the authorities will find them. He says, "They can move forward and backward in time, darling, they'll track us down." When no other options remain, Emmy suggests that Dan should talk to his father, James. Perhaps he could remove the tracker. James is an excellent engineer and doesn't trust the government at all, so he definitely won't inform the police. It is revealed that Dan's father, after returning from the Vietnam War, had abandoned his family. This was because, after losing many close comrades in the war, he was emotionally shattered. But Dan harbored a lot of resentment toward his father. Returning home, he sees his daughter playing in the garden. He tries to lie, saying he's going on a trip. But Murray immediately realizes that her father has been selected to go to war. Dan promises her that he will return alive and hugs her lovingly. A day later, Dan and other new recruits are given training in weapons and first aid to increase their chances of survival. Dan meets Charlie, an environmental scientist, and Dorian, a former Navy SEAL. While most people try to avoid going to this war, Dorian is heading to the fight for the 3rd time. Later, they are told that the white spikes disappear for a few days every 6 days to rest. During this time, new soldiers are sent to the future, and soldiers already on duty are brought back. That evening, while the new recruits are talking, an alarm suddenly goes off. A soldier from 2051 shouts that this is not part of their practice. Aliens have actually arrived. Hearing this, everyone rushes toward the portal room. Dan asks Lieutenant Hart what's happening. She replies in a serious tone that the aliens have attacked the last scientific research center in 2051. If they succeed in destroying this place, humanity will surely lose the war. A few minutes later, they enter the portal room. One by one, everyone is pulled into the portal. Suddenly, an error occurs in the landing location's address. As a result, Dan and the others are teleported into the sky hundreds of feet above the ground. Many die from the fall. Fortunately, Dan, Charlie, and Dorian land in a swimming pool on the roof of a very tall building, so they aren't seriously injured. Dan quickly gets out of the water and checks his gun. Then, going to the edge of the roof, he sees the city of Miami, now completely destroyed. Meanwhile, the military is investigating the error in the time jump. Soon, Chief Command contacts the survivors. They inform Dan that they will soon bomb the entire area because there are too many white spikes there. Additionally, Dan is tasked with leading the survivors to rescue a scientist trapped there. He confirms the mission and immediately begins gathering all the survivors on the roof. The group soon reaches the building where the scientists are supposed to be. They enter cautiously. Chief Command warns them to stay alert, as white spikes can smell blood from a distance. They soon find the scientists' team, but unfortunately they are all dead. The soldiers are then ordered to retrieve hard drives and biosamples from the lab so that all the information the scientists had can be obtained. This is because the scientists were working on a way to stop the aliens. Dan soon finds the samples, but he is informed that fighter jets will bomb the entire area in 6 minutes. Dan and his team quickly exit the building and reach the emergency stairs. But just then, several white spikes attack them from above. Dan tries to handle one alone, but ultimately, Dorian comes to his aid. Dorian, who has fought them before, explains that shooting at the neck or stomach is the only way to kill them. No weapon has any effect elsewhere on their bodies. With only 3 minutes left until the airstrike, Chief Command sends a rescue vehicle for them. Seeing the military jeep, everyone breathes a sigh of relief, thinking they're safe for now. But suddenly, 3 white spikes attack and destroy everything. Many team members die while trying to escape. Shortly after, the airstrike begins. Only 7 members of their team are left alive. They struggle to save themselves. 2 soldiers sacrifice themselves to stop the white spikes, allowing the remaining 5 to escape in time. A day later, Dan wakes up in a military base with Charlie. He soon meets Dorian, and it's revealed that only the 3 of them have survived. Dan asks Dorian about the white claw he wears around his neck. Dorian explains that he will die of cancer in 6 months. He learned this when he was first selected for the war. He keeps returning to the fight because he'd rather die saving humanity than in a hospital bed. Anyway, Chief Command's head soon calls him for a meeting. Dan is overjoyed to see his little daughter, now Colonel Murray Foster, as the head of Chief Command. She explains that there's a special reason for calling him here. She will reveal the details of this special mission, which she wants to complete with Dan's help when the time comes. They then go to a military tent. Murray explains that they've developed a toxic injection, but it currently only works on male white spikes. Now she wants Dan to help her capture a mother alien so they can create a toxin that can kill both male and female spikes. While heading toward a white spike nest in a helicopter, Murray explains that these aliens suddenly appeared on Earth one day. They emerged from northern Russia and spread across the world, but no one found a spaceship crash site or any evidence of their arrival. Changing the subject, Dan asks her what happened to their family between 2022 and 2051. Murray says it's better not to talk about it. Shortly after, they arrive at a nest. There, many soldiers are trying to trap a mother white spike in a cage. Everything seems to be going smoothly, but just then, the aliens attack to save the mother. From the helicopter, Dan notices a group of male white spikes approaching the nest. He and Murray quickly descend and manage to trap the mother spike in the cage. As the helicopter flies off with the cage, a group of male white spikes arrives. This forces the father and daughter to flee in a military jeep. They clear a path using the machine gun mounted on the vehicle. After a while, they reach a beach. Murray gets very angry because Dan didn't care about his life during the fight. She explains that she wants to keep him alive at all costs. In her anger, she starts talking about what happened to their family over the years. She tells Dan that after returning from the war, he became deeply depressed. He divorced his wife, Emmy, and started living alone. Then, a few days after Murray's 16th birthday, she received a call that completely changed her life. Dan had been in an accident that led to his death. Hearing this, Dan is deeply shocked. He can't believe he became just like his father, abandoning his family. They then return to the military base. Murray immediately starts working on creating the toxin to kill the aliens. She needs to test thousands of combinations to develop a toxin that can kill female spikes. Murray wants to do this quickly because Dan has only 21 hours left before he must return. The next morning, Dan asks Murray how they will kill so many aliens even if they succeed in making the toxin. Murray explains that Dan must return to his time and produce the toxin in large quantities. This way they can eliminate the aliens before the war even begins. While they're talking, the computer signals a 100% bond, meaning the female toxin has been created. But unfortunately, at that moment, the mother white spike wakes up. She starts screaming loudly. A few seconds later, white spikes invade the entire base. Meanwhile, Dan and Murray grab their guns and run full speed toward the helipad. On the way, many monstrous spikes block their path. Just then, a speaker announces that time jumpers have only 3 minutes left. Hearing this, Murray tells Dan to take the toxin and run. But another spike blocks her path. Before it can attack, the ground beneath them collapses due to the weight. As the alien and Murray fall, Dan jumps to save his daughter. But he is teleported mid-air. When he regains consciousness, he is back in 2022, still holding the toxin bottle. He tries to convince Lutna Hart that they must quickly produce the toxin in large quantities and send it to the future. Lutna informs him that the time portal has been completely destroyed from the other side. No one can travel to the future anymore. Hearing this, Dan quietly returns home in despair. At home, he first hugs his daughter tightly. That night, he tells Emmy about his conversation with Murray in the future. He also mentions that no one knows where the white spikes came from, as they suddenly appeared in 2048. Emmy suggests that perhaps these creatures came from space long ago. Hearing this, Dan gets an idea. He then meets Dorian at a bar. While talking about the future, they decide to stop the war before it begins. They take the white spike claw Dorian has to Charlie. As an environmental science expert, Charlie analyzes the claw and finds volcanic ash from China on it. This shocks both of them because the white spikes were first seen in northern Russia, far from China. This reminds Dan of his student Martin, who is very interested in volcanoes. Martin tells them that a massive volcano erupted 1,000 years ago. The event was so significant that its remnants could be found in the glaciers of northern Russia. Hearing this, they realize the white spikes definitely arrived 1,000 years ago. They were sleeping under Russia's cold ice sheets. Thinking further, they understand that due to global warming, the ice would melt by 2048. It can't be a coincidence that the white spikes launched their first attack that very year. With this information, they request funding from the US government for the mission. But the government flatly refuses, as relations between the US and Russia were already strained. Entering Russian territory with a plane could worsen things. With no other options, Dan goes to his father, James, who owns an unregistered airplane. James immediately agrees to join the mission. Just then, Lieutenant Hart arrives with freshly made toxic injections. With these, they can eliminate the aliens from their routes. After many hours of flying, they reach a place where all electronic devices stop working. They use explosives to dig a hole in the ground and carefully enter it. There they find a frozen alien spacecraft. They cut through the ice to enter the spaceship. Charlie and James stay outside to stop anyone from escaping. After some investigation, they reach the cockpit. Seeing it, they realize the flying saucer crashed here. They deduce that the aliens had no intention of coming to Earth. They then reach another chamber. There, the real white spikes are trapped in biopods. Seeing this, they understand everything. The white spikes were bioengineered by an intelligent alien race, created intentionally, similar to how we edit dog genes to create new breeds. Perhaps they used them to conquer other planets. They quickly start injecting the toxic injections into the pods. As the injections are administered, the white spikes writhe in pain, confirming that the toxin is fully effective. But their screams wake some aliens that haven't been injected yet. They break out of the pods and attack the team. Dan and his companions immediately start killing the aliens. However, a few manage to escape. Dorian says their only option now is to blow up the entire spaceship. Unfortunately, they are attacked before they can escape the spaceship. Only Dan, Charlie, and James manage to get out alive before the bomb activates. All the aliens on the ship die, but a red-bellied mother spike is still alive. Killing her is crucial, as she can produce more offspring. To catch her, Dan builds a snowman and puts a jacket on it to make it look human. As planned, the mother white spike falls into the trap. When she approaches the snowman, Dan and James shoot at her, driving her to the edge of a cliff. They want to push her into the abyss, but she isn't that weak. She immediately launches a counterattack. This separates the two. The alien then throws a spike at Dan, but Dan uses that spike to attack her. Just then, James strikes her eye with an axe. Now the mother alien is blinded. In rage, she flails her limbs wildly. Seizing the opportunity, Dan injects the toxic injection into her leg. But the alien isn't that foolish. She tears off her leg, like a lizard shedding its tail, to prevent the poison from spreading. At that moment, James raises his injured arm, letting the alien smell his blood to lure her toward him. But Dan doesn't want to see his father die like this, so he leaps onto the alien. Using Dorian's claw, he slits her throat. Then he shoves the toxic injection into her mouth and pushes her off the cliff. Falling from such a height, the white spike is completely crushed. The next day, news of the explosion in Russia spreads worldwide, with many aliens killed. Now the government prepares to take credit for the entire mission. Meanwhile, Dan returns home and meets his family. Forgetting all bitterness, he lives happily with his father. And with that, the movie's story ends. See you in the next video with the story of another interesting movie. Thank you.